heard my wife moan, and it wasn't my name. The sound sliced through the low hum of the hallway air vents, sharp enough to stop me mid-step. I'd only come upstairs for a glass of water, barefoot, half drunk, still trying to make sense of the night that had spiraled far beyond what any of us intended. But that sound, God, that sound, froze me cold. It wasn't a laugh or a murmur or something innocent. It was raw, breathy, shaken with pleasure. And it belonged to Emily. My Emily. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stood there in the dim light spilling from the bathroom behind me, listening as the guest room door trembled in its frame. A man's voice answered her, a low, muffled groan, and the floor beneath my feet vibrated with the rhythm of their bodies hitting the mattress. That man was my friend. My co-worker. The person I had trusted with my marriage in a moment of reckless, drunken stupidity. Ryan. And suddenly it didn't matter that tonight had been planned. That we'd all agreed. That it was supposed to be an experiment, a spark, a thrill, something harmless married couples did when they wanted to feel alive again. Hearing it, hearing them, shattered any illusion that this was harmless. I wasn't supposed to be here. Emily and I had agreed to stay apart until morning, to avoid awkwardness, to let things play out cleanly. But the moment I heard her voice, something inside me tore in two. I pressed my palm against the wall, steadying myself as my stomach twisted. My own room, the master bedroom, where I'd been with Ryan's wife, Jenna, felt miles away though it was just down the hall. She was asleep now, one arm draped across my waist, her soft breaths warm against my shoulder. She'd come undone earlier, the way people do when they're lonely in their own marriages. But hearing Emily changed everything. This wasn't excitement. Or exploration. Or some bold, adventurous memory we'd laugh about years from now. This was betrayal. Real. Immediate. Vicious. And it was happening under my own roof. My legs gave out and I slid down the wall to the hardwood floor, heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. I pressed both hands over my ears but I could still hear them, the thump of the bed, the strained moans, the breathless desperation. Emily had never sounded like that with me. Never. A sour heat burned in my throat. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream or rip the door off its hinges and drag her out. But part of me, some dark, pathetic part, kept listening. Because the truth is, I needed to know. I needed to hear how far she'd go. How much of herself she'd give him. How deeply she'd betray me. I stayed there for 10 minutes, maybe 20. I lost track, until finally the sounds died down. A muffled laugh. Footsteps. Silence. And that silence was worse than anything. It meant they were lying next to each other. Talking. Whispering. Maybe touching. Intimacy terrified me more than sex. With shaking fingers, I pushed myself to my feet and stumbled back into the master bedroom. The air smelled like sweat and perfume, the sheets twisted from earlier. Jenna didn't stir when I climbed into bed. She simply melded into me with familiar tenderness as if I were her husband, not the man temporarily wearing his role. My skin crawled. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. The morning light was harsh and too honest. Downstairs, the kitchen was filled with the awkward quiet of 4 people who had shared too much and slept too little. The smell of coffee and toast did nothing to ease the tension. Ryan looked like he'd been hit by a truck. His brown hair was a mess, his eyes swollen, his expression guarded. He wouldn't look at me. Guilt, I thought. Good. But Emily looked radiant. Fresh. Bright-eyed. Glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. She stood at the stove flipping pancakes, humming softly. My stomach dropped. "Hey," she said, giving me a smile that should have comforted me but instead made my chest tighten. "Sleep okay?" She was pretending. Acting. Or maybe, not pretending at all. Maybe she genuinely felt fine. I forced a nod. "Yeah. You." She slid a pancake onto a plate and handed it to me. "Crazy night, right?" Her tone was too casual, too light, like we'd stayed up playing board games and drinking beer, not sleeping with other people in separate rooms. I couldn't tell if she was hiding something or if she truly didn't feel what I felt, that punch to the gut, that hollow ache spreading through my ribcage. Jenna walked in wearing one of Emily's oversized t-shirts, hair tangled, cheeks flushed. When she saw me, She offered a small, tired smile. Gratitude. And maybe regret. Not Emily. Emily barely seemed aware of what she'd done to me. Ryan sat at the table stirring coffee he clearly wasn't drinking. His eyes darted briefly to Emily, then away, his jaw tightening. There was something there, something raw and unspoken. I caught it. I stored it. I hated it. We ate in silence, the four of us together, every bite heavy with the weight of what the night had created. Something had shifted, deep inside each of us. After breakfast, Jenna and Ryan gathered their things and left quickly, almost too quickly. The moment the door closed behind them, Emily let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. That was intense, she said with a nervous laugh. I didn't laugh. She looked up sharply. What? I didn't know where to begin. So I didn't start with gentleness. I heard you last night. Her face drained of color. You, what? Your voice. His voice. Everything. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out. She looked like someone had slapped her. Then the defensive walls rose instantly. You shouldn't have been listening. Listening. My voice cracked. Emily, you sounded. I stopped. I couldn't finish that sentence. The truth was too jagged. Her eyes softened, then hardened again. We agreed to this, she whispered. We agreed to one night, I said. Not whatever that was. She swallowed hard. You're overthinking. It happened. It's done. But I saw it, the flicker of something behind her eyes. Longing. Not regret. Not shame. Longing. You liked it, I said quietly. She flinched as if I'd stabbed her. That was all the confirmation I needed. She turned away, arms folded tight, staring at the floor tiles. It was different, okay? Different doesn't mean better. The lie was thin. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Emily, did something happen after everything? Did you stay awake with him? Talk to him? She didn't answer. Silence again, that same brutal silence that had followed the moans last night. That silence told the truth. I felt something inside me collapse, an emotional floor giving out beneath me. Fear. Anger. Humiliation. I felt all of it, blistering and alive beneath my skin. Emily finally lifted her head. We can move past this. People do these things all the time. Do they? I whispered. Or do they just bury things until they rot? Her lips trembled. Are you saying this ruined us? I stared at her, my wife, the woman I'd loved for 11 years, the person who'd slept in another man's arms under my roof and was now asking me not to feel destroyed. I don't know, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. The next few days were a blur. Emily acted as though nothing had happened, cooking dinner, sending me texts, laughing at shows we watched. If anything, she seemed lighter, happier. It made my stomach twist every time I looked at her. She wasn't running from guilt. She was reveling in something. Meanwhile, I spiraled. I replayed every moment of our marriage, every year, every kiss, every argument, every time we'd made love with quiet routine. I tried to measure it against the sound of her voice last night. And I kept coming back to one truth I didn't want to face. I had not made her feel that way in a long time. Maybe ever. By the third night, emotions roared in me like wildfire. Anger, hurt, fear, denial, but one feeling rose above them all. Suspicion. Because something about this wasn't adding up. Emily's glow. Ryan's avoidance. That charged silence. They hadn't just slept together. Something else had happened. Something they weren't telling us. On the fourth night, I noticed something new. Emily changed her phone password. My chest tightened. She hadn't done that in years. She noticed me watching. Work stuff, she said casually, shrugging. New policy. Lie. I saw it instantly. She turned her back as she typed in the digits. It wasn't just one night. It wasn't just a mistake. Something was happening now. Something ongoing. That was when fear turned into certainty. And certainty into quiet, simmering rage. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, listening again, This time not to her voice, but to the scream of my own intuition. Something was happening between Emily and Ryan. Something I had to uncover. Something that would break what was left of me. Emily started locking her phone at home. That was the first sign something new had begun, something far more dangerous than a one-night experiment. At first, I tried telling myself it was coincidence, or paranoia, or the lingering trauma of what we'd done. But the truth refused to be buried. It kept clawing its way to the surface. She hid her phone under pillows. Took it with her to the bathroom. Turned the screen away from me when she typed. Once, I walked into the kitchen unexpectedly and saw her snap the phone face down so fast it smacked the marble and vibrated. She forced a smile and said, "Oh, just work emails." But she couldn't hide the panic. I'd never seen panic like that, sharp, instinctive, guilty. And that was when I knew. Emily and Ryan weren't done. They had only just begun. 3 nights later, I broke. I couldn't carry the weight alone anymore. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while a storm ripped through my chest. I needed to talk to someone who understood, someone who had also lost something that night. Jenna. I stared at my phone for an hour before texting her. Can we talk? She replied instantly. Jenna, I was hoping you'd say that. Not 5 minutes later, she was at my door. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tied in a messy knot, her shoulders shaking slightly. She looked wrecked, and not because of the night we'd shared. She looked like someone who had been living in confusion and heartbreak far longer than I had. We sat at my dining table, and she wrapped both hands around her coffee cup as if she needed something to hold on to. "I think they're still talking," she said before I could speak. My breath caught. "You knew." "I suspected." She looked down at the cup. "Ryan changed too. He keeps taking late-night showers. He hides his phone. He says he's tired when I ask what's wrong. He never used to, shut me out." Silence. Shared pain sat between us, heavy and trembling. "I heard them that night," I confessed quietly. Jenna's eyes lifted, filled with sudden grief. "What did you hear?" "Everything." She pressed a hand against her mouth, eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," I whispered. "We agreed to it. But, they went somewhere we didn't." Jenna nodded slowly. "It wasn't just sex for him." "For her either," I whispered. We didn't speak for a moment. Then Jenna asked the question that had been burning in both our minds. "Do you think something was already happening before that night?" I had asked myself the same thing. Over and over. "No," I said. "Emily would have acted differently before. She would have slipped. And Ryan is too obvious. He can't hide things. I think the night changed something in them." "Or awakened something," she whispered. A chill slid across my arms. Jenna wiped her tears and straightened her back. "What do we do?" "We find out the truth," I said. "All of it." "And then?" she asked. I didn't know. But the truth had to come first, before decisions, before consequences, before the ruins of our marriages swallowed us whole. The opportunity came faster than expected. On Saturday morning, Emily said Ryan needed help picking up lumber for a home project. Her tone was casual. Too casual. She grabbed her keys, kissed my cheek, and said she'd be back in a couple hours. My chest tightened. She wasn't going to pick up lumber. She wasn't going to help. She was going to him. I gave her a nod and told her to take her time, then waited until her car rolled down the street before grabbing my jacket and heading outside. I got into my car, turned it on, and followed. Not closely enough to be seen. Far enough to stay hidden. She didn't drive toward the hardware store. She didn't drive toward Ryan's house either. She drove to a cheap hotel on the outskirts of town. My pulse hammered so hard my hands shook. She pulled into a side parking lot and waited. 2 minutes later, Ryan's car turned the corner and pulled up next to hers. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look around. He just got out, walked straight to her door, and she got out too. He touched her waist. She leaned into him. She smiled. That smile destroyed me. She hadn't smiled like that at me in years. They walked inside together, hand brushing hand, like they were too afraid to be obvious but too drawn to each other to stop. I felt something inside my chest collapse with a quiet, devastating finality. It was real. It was ongoing. It was more than lust. More than curiosity. More than a mistake. They had chosen each other. And they had chosen each other behind our backs. My throat closed. I wanted to storm inside, drag her out, scream at him, break the walls with my fists, but I didn't move. I just stared through the windshield, frozen, numb. Jenna had followed me. I saw her car pull up behind mine in the mirror. When she walked to my window, her face crumpled. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh God." She collapsed against my car door, shoulders shaking, trying to bury her sobs. I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't breathe. All I could do was watch the hotel door and feel the brutal truth settle like ash around me. We stood there for 20 minutes before Jenna said, voice trembling, "I want to confront them." But I grabbed her wrist gently, shaking my head. "No. Not yet. Not angry. Not outside. Not while emotions are this raw. They'll just deny it or turn it on us." "Then when?" she choked. "When we know everything." Jenna wiped her tears and nodded slowly. Because the truth wasn't finished revealing itself. Not yet. Emily came home 3 hours later. Her hair was messy. Her cheeks were flushed. And she smelled like a perfume she never wore around me. I stood in the living room waiting. She stopped in the doorway, surprised to see me. "Oh," she said, catching her breath. "I thought you were out." I just stared at her. She swallowed. "What's wrong?" I took one step forward. "Where were you?" She blinked. "I told you. Helping Ryan." "No," I said. "Where were you, Emily?" Her breath hitched. She hesitated a fraction too long. And that hesitation was everything. What is this?" she asked, defensive now. "Why are you interrogating me?" "Because I followed you," I said quietly. Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I continued, voice trembling with restrained fury. "I saw you meet him. I saw you go inside. I waited. 4 hours." Her hands shook. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said. She stepped back, tears pooling in her eyes. Please just listen." "For how long?" I snapped. "How long have you been seeing him?" She looked stricken. "It wasn't planned. We tried to stop." Tried to stop. My heart cracked. "How long?" I demanded again. "A few weeks," she whispered. After that night, something changed. I felt alive. And I thought maybe it was just curiosity, or confusion, or, God, I don't know. I stared at her, stunned, gutted. "You didn't feel alive with me." She cried harder. "You haven't looked at me that way in years." And when Ryan did, everything came rushing back. Feeling wanted. Feeling desired. "So you betrayed me," I said softly. She grabbed my arm, desperate. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I whispered. Silence. Broken, bleeding silence. She stepped closer, touching my chest. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can shut this down. I'll block him. I'll delete everything. I'll beg Jenna to forgive us. I stepped away. Her breath caught. I wasn't walking away in anger. I was walking toward the drawer of the foyer table. Emily tensed. "What are you doing?" I opened the drawer and pulled out a stack of folded papers. Her face went pale. I unfolded them slowly and placed them on the coffee table between us. Hotel receipts. Photos. Screenshots Jenna and I had gathered over the last few days. Proof. Cold, undeniable, unforgiving proof. "Emily," I said quietly, "this wasn't just cheating." She stared at the papers as if they were knives. "You built a relationship with him." Her knees gave out, and she sank onto the couch, shaking violently. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Please don't leave me." That word, leave, hung in the air like a haunting. I didn't answer her. Because I couldn't. Not yet. Not with my mind spinning. Not with my heart in ruins. I walked upstairs without another word. She didn't follow. The twist came 3 days later. 3 days of silence. 3 days of sleeping in separate rooms. 3 days of replaying every moment of our marriage with painful clarity. On the third night, there was a knock at the door. I opened it expecting Jenna. But it wasn't her. It was Ryan. His face battered. Lip split. Fresh bruises on his cheek and jaw. Eyes red and swollen. He looked like he had been beaten half to death. Jesus, what happened? I asked. His voice cracked as he spoke. Jenna left me, he said. She took the kids and went to her sister's. And then? He swallowed painfully. Then she came back with her brother and 2 cousins. My breath caught. They jumped you. I whispered. He nodded. Said I destroyed their family. Said they wanted me to feel it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't pity him, but I wasn't heartless either. He looked up at me, trembling. I know you hate me, he said. You should. I hate myself. Silence. But you need to know something, he whispered. My stomach tightened. What? He took a deep breath and told me the truth that would destroy everything I had tried to salvage. It didn't start that night, he said. My chest tightened. What? It didn't start with the swap, he repeated, voice cracking. Emily and I, we were already talking. Flirting. For months. That night didn't create anything. It just gave us permission. My heart slammed against my ribs. No, this couldn't. Emily said she'd tell you, he whispered. She said she'd confess the whole thing. We were going to stop. We were, I swear we were. I felt the world tilt. Cold. Sharp. Empty. Why are you telling me this now? I choked. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. Because I don't want you thinking it was just lust or impulsive. I fell for her. She fell for me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know it wasn't meaningless. I stared at him, numb. Months. They'd been hiding this for months. Before the swap. Before the experiment. Before I ever said yes. Emily had brought this into our marriage long before I had any say in it. Everything spun. Ryan whispered, shaking. I'm sorry. But I didn't hear him. Because behind him, at the top of the staircase, Emily stood frozen, face pale, hands shaking, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She had heard every word. Every devastating word. And she knew the truth was out. Not just what she did, but who she had become. Our eyes met across the hallway, and her expression broke into something I had never seen from her. Not guilt, not shame, not fear. It was surrender. The quiet, devastating surrender of someone who finally realized she had destroyed the thing she thought would always be unbreakable. Us. And I knew, with an ache so deep it hollowed me out. There was no fixing this. There was no therapy. No apology. No promise. No future. The marriage was already dead. And Emily knew it too. The moment Ryan walked away, she collapsed onto the stairs in a heap of silent, shaking grief. But I didn't go to her. I walked past her. Down the steps. Out the door. Into a world that suddenly felt unfamiliar and cold. Because the only thing worse than discovering she betrayed me was discovering she had betrayed me long before I ever had the chance to protect myself.